Welcome to Catalyzing Change Week. We are very pleased to have you all today in this session. Hopefully you'll enjoy the session. We are very happy to have this an active session that is going to be moderated by Robin Furman. And well, welcome everyone, and I'll give the word to Robin.
Hello, everyone. Greetings. My name is Robin Furman. I am the president and CEO of Enactus. We are a global network of leaders committed to using business and innovation to solve the world's most pressing problems. We educate, support, and inspire young people around the world, several of whom you'll have the opportunity to hear from today, who are continuing their Enactus journey well after our program has ended as social entrepreneurs, making a significant impact in the global South. As you're joining us, we want to know where you are in the world today. Again, I'm the CEO of Enactus, a global network of leaders committed to using business and innovation to solve the world's most pressing problems. I'm coming to you from the southeastern part of the United States, where it is morning on Monday, and I think it will be a beautiful day. The sun is shining and the sky is blue, and it should be warm this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to it. But what I'm mostly looking forward to is this conversation with incredible leaders from across the Enactus Global Network. Young leaders who have really taken the experiential education that they have had throughout Enactus and other experiences in their lives and applied those to social entrepreneurship and the work of using business and innovation to solve real problems and make a huge impact on both social and environmental issues in their home communities and around the world. We have some incredible people who are here today. And so we will start by asking them to introduce themselves. We'll ask them each to introduce themselves, a little bit about their organization and why they decided to start their social venture. So Lennox, you are in the center of my screen. I'm going to ask you to start us. Will you please introduce yourselves and take about 3 minutes to tell us more about who you are and what you do and why you do it.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and delighted to be here today at the Catalyst 2030. My name is Lennox Omodi. I'm an alumni at Enactus, and as a youth growing up in the western part of Kenya, I had witnessed the struggles of the women and girls. And that led me being an innovator, a social entrepreneur, and social impact burns at the heart of my hand with a heart for the world and a mind for the business. And so it broke my heart to see the impact that this had in the lives of many girls and women, because we live in a world that is rapidly growing, where access to products and even healthcare, food is not accessible by anyone. So these experiences had already ignited my passion within me to create a long-lasting impact and to make a difference in my community. It led to me founding Eco-Bana Limited, which is a social enterprise that manufactures biodegradable sanitary towels using banana fibers. So me and my team decided to come up with a solution that is able to end intergenerational period poverty that are succumbing in the local and even in the whole Kenya, in the communities. So we decided that people usually throw the banana trunks after cutting them down or after harvesting the fruits. But then we realized that if the same people who are throwing this waste away are the same people who are affected by period poverty, meaning they had a problem, but what they didn't know is that the solution was quite literally in their own hands. So we used the concept of design thinking, and also we used the concept of green and circular economy to skillfully craft our sustainable solution. So at Eco-Bana Limited, we are producing biodegradable sanitary towels using banana fibers, which are affordable, cost-effective, and hygienic. And that is what we do at Eco-Bana Limited.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lennox. I know that we all are excited to learn more about your journey in founding Eco-Bana Limited. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about yourself and what you do and why you do it. Let's go on to our next panelist. Mathias, I see you next on my screen. Please introduce yourself to the group and share more about your organization and why you're passionate about the issues that you work on.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be part of such an amazing event to inspire many young people. So my name is Mathias Charles Yabe. I am a Ghanaian. I am an alumni of Inactis KNUST here in Ghana. So my entrepreneurship journey started when in 2018 when I joined Inactis. But growing up as a young boy in a small farming village in the eastern part of Ghana, I experienced the issue of food insecurity and financial instability. And I always wondered why these challenges were not attended to. This problem led to several issues within my community. This was due to lack of mechanized technologies for pre and post-harvest activities. There were several instances where children would have to leave their classrooms and then sent to the farms to, work for their parents, because at the end of the day, if they don't end up working for their parents on the farms, they wouldn't get anything to even eat, and they wouldn't get enough money to fend for themselves, even in schools. So this was really affecting a lot of children due to lack of mechanized technologies. Having, seen this at first hand, inspired me to, launch my social intervention called AkoFresh. So the mission of AkoFresh is to help reduce the issue of post-harvest losses in smallholder farming communities in Ghana and across West Africa. We are solving the major issue, which is contributing to food waste, because currently in sub-Saharan Africa, smallholder farmers are losing 40% of all their harvest before getting to consumers. This issue is very detrimental to smallholder farming communities, affecting their livelihoods, and it is not even safe for the climate, because food waste is one of the major contributors to climate change. So our innovation, AkoFresh, is a solar-powered cold storage preservation technology, which is extending shelf life of perishable crops from 5 days to 21 days, helping farmers to be able to reduce losses by 50%, improving their livelihoods, and reducing food waste carbon emissions. To date, we've been able to serve over 250 farmers, and our activities have impacted more than 1,200 individuals in 5 communities here in Ghana.
Amazing, Mathias. And again, so many questions and similarities in terms of the lived experience that you bring to the solution that you're offering that I'm excited to learn more about. Thank you for joining us today. Ananya, let's turn to you. I would love to hear more about your journey. Tell us who you are and why you're passionate about the issues that you work on.
Sure, and thank you so much for having me, Robin. Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually. I'm Ananya Singh. I'm based in Delhi, India. I've more or less born and brought up in India. I am currently running a social enterprise called the Kala Store. I've been working in the social impact space in a professional capacity for the past 3 years now with a international nonprofit organization called the Clinton Foundation. Prior to that, I was working as an investment banking analyst. So I had taken a sort of traditional corporate route out of college after my stint with Inactis at Shri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi. So I'm currently running a social enterprise that aims to ensure the sustained financial independence for women living below the national poverty line in India. We've been working with them starting out in the pandemic. We started with a livelihood training grant that was given to the women to ensure that they're resilient through the adverse impact that the pandemic had on the economy, specifically for women. So what we do is we've actually trained women in crafts forms, and we're trying to connect them directly to customers who are willing to pay for their creations. The women are known as Kala Sakhis, which in Hindi means friends of craft. We've just recently launched a direct-to-consumer platform for their creations, and I'll drop the link in the chat so anyone who wants to check it out can browse their creations. And they're supremely talented, and I feel very passionately about this project and working with them. My motivation is basically because they teach me a lot, and I feel very strongly about the power of women in the workforce, specifically women who are are fighting gender barriers across levels, especially women who are those barriers that are coupled with the socioeconomic barriers that these women face. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the panel and looking forward to discussing more.
Thank you, Ananya. I love that personal passion is coming through in terms of how you've worked to really build a business enterprise that's aligned with all of those passions and values. Thank you for being here today. And then Muhle, I'm so excited that you're joining us. Please introduce yourself to the group as our final panelist and share more about the work you do and why you do it.
Thank you very much. Name is Muhle Ndwalane, born and raised in South Africa. I'm very grateful to be part of this panel. My story is pretty much straightforward, but full of grace on every opportunity that one has got. Growing up from a rural community and then getting an opportunity to go to the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. When one was busy, I'm fascinated by the power of internet. Since one was not used to the internet when I got to varsity, I found myself watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I came across some of the NXS presentations. I remember my university, UKZN, had recently won the national competition, and I was like, wow, these students are so smart. Like, I want to be there. I want to be the one who's there, you know. And from there, I started searching on campus that who are these people and who are these people? And no one, some of them didn't know them, but the ones who knew them, they were saying that those ones are very elite. They are always wearing suits. They are so formal or whatnot. But I was like, I want to be there. So fortunately enough, I got in the organization. And it's been very transformative. Me being part of Nexus is one tipping point that has set me to be where I am today because of the networks, the experiences with other students we were with within the organization. 2018, I got the opportunity to go to the Nexus World Cup. It was in Silicon Valley. It was my first time flying out of the country, but when I got to the World Cup, I was like, this is going to be the life and the lifestyle that I want to live, impacting people, doing business, and then just making sure that it's not within the local community that I'm part of. Fast forward, when I graduated at university, while I was still on the Nexus, I'd already started running my business, which is Asante Solutions. Primarily, I was doing the graphic design element side of the business and basic marketing. But when I was serving as the president, I got to be more exposed into different opportunities and then realized a lot of business needs. And our business is now running as a digital marketing and technology services agency. I'm a hybrid of both, and we service our clients in the education sector, beauty sector, health sector, and property sector. And our clients are not only now in South Africa, we have clients that are coming from Paris. Currently, I'm in Dubai as we are speaking with you. We're here just working with one of our clients. So our work is now going globally because of the first exposure that I got while I was still a student at NXS. So a little bit that is part of my story in simple puts, but I'll be happy to unpack more on some specific questions of interest. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing more about the ways that your initial experiences in college and university also shaped the work that you do around the world today. I'm excited for all of you to share more around your journey and both the challenges and the learnings for those. To our audience members, we invite you to be participants in this discussion. So as you have questions that you'd like to ask the group, feel free to put them in the chat and I will pull them out during the conversation that we have during our time together. So feel free to use the chat to ask questions throughout the conversation today. I want to kind of ground us. Each one of you on the panel are at different stages in your social entrepreneurship journey. And so I'm curious also to hear a little bit more around your definition of success. I often say as a leader that we need to begin with the end in mind. We need to know, like, where are we headed? What are we trying to do? What is our definition of success? And then we backwards plan from that definition in order to achieve it. And so I'm curious for each of you, when you think about the enterprises that you are working with, what is your definition of success for the work that you do? Ananya, I'll start with you. I know you're in an earlier stage with your enterprise, and I'm curious how you're thinking about this definition of success as you begin this journey.
That's an interesting question. I think it's something I've been trying to grapple with internally through conversations with myself. And I think the first thing is that it's of course an evolving definition. It's something that it's a question that we should keep asking ourselves as we grow in our professional journeys. To start with, I think, like in the beginning of our careers, it is important to put learning ahead of everything. And I think that's what I tried to do right after graduating from college. As you go forward, I think it's important to put values that you hold true to yourself up front in your success curve. And I think that's what I've tried to do. So success for me now is sort of non-linear. It's moved away from financial and traditional success and that learning curve to sort of giving back to causes I feel passionately about.
Thank you for that. I love that notion of success being grounded in values alignment as a huge part of regardless of what it looks like and how you spend your day, that ensuring that there's values alignment there. Lennox, Eco-Bana has received a lot of external recognition, which is so amazing for the work that you do, particularly over the last year. I'm curious how you're thinking about success for this growing company. I'd love to hear your definition of success.
Thank you. When I was starting Eco-Bana Limited, I had a very different perspective of what success might mean, because the traditional aspect of success is having a lot of money, being able to, live this flashy life. But then going into the community and being able to talk to women, to girls, to general people on what are their perspective of social problems that they're facing and how are we able to make their lives better. I realized that success for a social enterprise, and for me even individually, it's going to mean achieving my mission and a vision to create a measurable change in the world. And it also means to me improving the lives of the people it serves. Whether Eco-Bana serves a certain people, it's going to mean that because there's going to be increased education, girls are now going to go to school, and they're going to be also success in terms of economic empowerment, or even through reduced negative impact on the environment, because now we're producing a product that is environmentally sustainable. And also success personally means to me building a sustainable and a resilient organization or a brand that can continue to make a positive change in the world for many years to come. It might create a strong and a supportive team, maybe developing an effective partnerships with networks, and even securing many and necessary resources to scale and impact our enterprises. And so waking up each and every day and going into the communities and seeing people, brighten their faces when they see our product, when they see our brand, when we go to talk to them and even try to counsel them and even give them opportunities that they didn't have. To us, that is success. And that is one of the things that makes waking up at Eco-Bana Limited each and every day worthwhile. That's how I would, define success
Yes.
as a company and as a person.
Thank you for that, Lennox. What I hear in your answer is, I think what makes social enterprise and leading social enterprises so rewarding, but also so challenging. There are many metrics of success for a social enterprise, and you must meet both your revenue and profit goals and also meet your impact goals. And so this is the challenge. There is not success without either one of those. And so that is both the challenge and the beauty of social enterprise there. Matthias, how do you think about this notion of success with AkoFresh, and perhaps how has that definition changed during your social enterprise journey?
Yes, of course. This an interesting one, and I was also getting some cues from what my colleague said, because there are several definitions for success, and as it's rightly said, a lot of people tend to know that, okay, the traditional definition of success, you achieving something huge, getting a lot of recognitions. But for me as an individual, and then working with my social enterprise AkoFresh, we see success is when we see success to be you being able to be resilient, because resilience is something that is very, very key, especially in our work as social entrepreneurs, because we face several challenges. We go to communities, sometimes we get rejected. Just imagine introducing a new technology to people at the grassroots. They are very skeptical about it. And then upon working on your innovation, spending a lot of money, you go to communities and they tell you, we don't want to use this. We don't think this will work. We are still sticking with our traditional ways of doing things. So if you're not resilient, you get breakdown, and then it might affect you. So as an entrepreneur, and my team and I have been able to define success as being able to overcome challenges, and then rising up from difficult times, and seeing light at the end of every tunnel, because that is one thing that will definitely keep us growing. And we've really seen that it has been quite evident, because I started working on my social intervention with other colleagues from different countries. And you can imagine working across 3 different continents remotely since 2020 has been very challenging. But then we've still been able to go through different difficulty times. But what also keeps us going is the fact that a lot of people appreciate the work we do, and they are also willing to push us and give us motivation, spotlight our work, and then keep a lot of people inspired. So yeah, in a nutshell, this basically my definition for success.
Thank you, Matthias. I hear in that very much a definition that is grounded in a process, right? A process of resilience, and that a belief that if we remain true to this process of resilience and this entrepreneurial mindset that helped us in the very beginning, that will lead us to success as we continue to face challenges and opportunities. Muhle, what would you say for when you think about Asante Solutions? How has your definition of success evolved during your leadership?
My definition of success, it has really transformed from what I thought success is when I was growing up. Because I remember growing up, success meant having all the things that you might want as and when you want them. But being part of an Nexus shape-shifted my mindset when it's looking into success. And I have 2 phrases that define success to me. One is inspiring greatness, and the second one is making things happen. On the side of inspiring greatness, that's a tagline from my university where I come from. So as an Nexus team, we adopted that as part of the main reason we do what we do, is that even when we get into a certain community to do the work that we are doing, after the impact that has been made, but someone must be inspired enough to also unlock their greatness. So everything that we're doing is about the impact and the inspiration afterwards, of which is the secondary outcome, the one that we didn't intend to. So it is really defined that once a person is inspired by the work that you are doing, for me, that is when I've actually unlocked success. I see the goals that we set for ourselves, but beyond the goal achieved, what happens after that? For me, that's the fulfillment side. That is the success part of CAP. And then on the other side of making things happen, that's just being impact driven. Is that okay? You set the goals, that you've said, but a lot of people experience different challenges at different times. So in our business, being a solution company that is using technology and different ways of communication, it becomes our responsibility to make things happen irregardless of the challenges that might happen. So once there's a number of challenges that are there and we still made things to happen one way or the other way, for me, that's a successful, that's success. That's what fulfills my spirit. That's what fulfills the cause that we are doing. So both inspiring greatness and making things happen, they are more or less relational to me, but the same, but it's just that I use them as different pillars of defining what would be success. Yeah, especially the inspiring greatness part of it, because we like every single efforts now that I put in is like, I will get this done for sure because I made things happen. But once we reach here, I'm more interested on what comes after.
Yes.
Achieving that goal. And that's how it goes. That's how it goes from my side. That's what success is.
I love that. I feel like you've just given us a definition for what a social entrepreneur does. They inspire greatness. They make things happen, and I would add to that, they solve real problems. And so, thank you for putting it so succinctly in terms of your own definition of success. For each of you, I want to go back to the original part of your journey, to the moments when you were just thinking about your ideas for your enterprises. I want to ask you, like, when you were just, many people think about ideas for solutions for the world, but it takes a lot of courage to be able to put those ideas into action. And so I want to hear from you, when you were first thinking about the ideas for your social enterprise, how were you able to tell? What gave you confidence that it was a good idea? And how did you decide to move it from the ideation phase to actual implementation? Walk us through that process. Mathias, let's start with you and AkoFresh for this one.
Yes, this is a very good one, to be honest, and I'm sure many aspiring entrepreneurs are also on the call. So starting off, I had already identified the idea because of my experience growing up as a child. And when I got into Inactus in 2018, that was when I went on a volunteer trip to one of Ghana's major tomato farming communities. So although I grew up in a small farming village, I hadn't seen to a very large extent of which post-harvest loss is affecting communities, because I went to a very huge community that supplies the nation with tomatoes, fresh tomatoes. Now, during that volunteer trip with my Inactus team in first year, I came across a 56-year-old woman. This woman took us around her farm, pointing out rotten tomatoes and sadly sharing how hard she had worked, only to lose 1/3 of all her crops every farming season. She also went ahead to state that her only source of livelihood was farming, and that is what she used to fend for herself and her family. Her story really, really struck us, and that was why I really had to start looking into the problem, because I realized that, okay, if this woman is facing this issue in this particular community, there are several of these women farmers across Ghana and across the global south who are also facing such a challenge. So I realized that, okay, this is now a global solution, a global problem, and needs a global solution to tackle this. So I went back. What I had to do was to start researching about the issue of post-harvest losses. To what extent is this problem affecting people in Ghana, in Africa, and globally? So I went ahead and I realized that FAO states that up to 40% of food produced by smallholder farmers in Africa is lost every year. So you can just imagine to the extent of which smallholder farmers are suffering from this issue. So I realized that, okay, one, developing a solution to a global problem is something that really, really needs attention. And secondly, we went ahead after realizing that the problem is something that was being affected by smallholder farmers at a global level. Realized that, okay, now let's develop a solution. What alternatives are farmers resorting to? What local or traditional means are they using to reduce their losses? So we took all those things into consideration, and then we developed a solution which we realized that cold chain is something that can really help smallholder farmers to preserve their fresh crops. So, and even after having that in mind of developing a cold chain solution, we still had a challenge about the fact that many of these farming communities do not have access to their grade. That is how come they are not even having access to cold chain solutions. So that also brought us back to the table to say that, okay, why don't we develop 100% off-grid solution, which means that farmers are able to harness the power of renewable energy to cool their fresh produce wherever they are, and this is also helping to bridge the energy poverty gap. So these were some of the stages we're going through. After developing our cold chain idea, the next stage is for us to look at alternatives. How do we get funding? How do we get support, to take the initiative from the idea stage to a very practical approach or run a pilot? It was very difficult. So we had to, research, go online, and then look for initiatives that will help us take the idea from one level to another. But one thing that really inspired us was the fact that Inactus had already given us that exposure, to the fact that there are several initiatives, there are several, organizations who are willing to fund social innovations and run pilots. And that is one thing Inactus has been championing, since its inception. So we realized that, okay, this is highly possible. And thankfully, we were able to raise $25,000 even at the idea stage, which was incredible for us because we were able to quickly run a pilot and developed a solar-powered cooling technology, which is now transforming the Akumadan community here in Ghana, because the community currently loses nearly $2 million worth of fresh farm produce every year because of post-harvest losses. But now with our solution, I'm proud to let you know that we are able to help over 250 farmers reduce losses by 50%. And yes. Another interesting thing is the fact that our solution was able to gain, a lot of global recognition, and that really gave us, a sense of belief that the work we are doing is something that is addressing a very important issue around food waste. Last year, we received quite a number of recognitions, even including World Economic Forum, UN FAO, and we had the opportunity to present at the United Nations Climate Change Conference at the COP27 in Egypt, and many amongst others. So yes, the journey has been quite difficult. It has been, a lot of challenges, but of course, we went through, this stage briefly. I can't really say it all because of time, but that was how the journey started, and this is where we are today.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about that, Mathias, thank you so much for that answer, is that, there's two ends, it seems, of your story in so many ways so far. That you were able to really know that this idea had possibility because you talked directly with farmers, right? You talked directly with the woman on the tomato farm who was able to say, this is how the problem impacts my real life. You then moved to ideating and trying out different ideas, seeing what works, what doesn't. You were grounded in the realities of the communities in which you work and the customers with whom you were working, whether they had access to the grid or not. And so I hear that, that being really, what I love about that story is that you were very proximate to the issues that you were trying to solve. You weren't trying to solve them from far away. You were solving them from up close. At the same time, support from further away from a global community sounds like it was key in terms of giving you the confidence and the very real capital to take the idea onto the next stage. So I think it shows that there's there's a place for all of us in this journey in so many different ways. Lennox, what about you? Tell us more. When you were originally thinking of the idea, looking at the issues of period poverty, looking at the assets of banana leaves, what made you think this is a good idea? I should move forward with this. How did you get started, and what let you know that moving from the original idea stage to prototyping was the right move?
All right. Thank you so much. So the first time when we had already seen in the news that because in Kenya we have on 20th of October is a holiday where we celebrate Heroes Day in Kenya. And so when the president was announcing that one particular mother from the northeastern part of Kenya had been awarded an accolade for her braveness because her daughters had missed school for the third time in a row to complete their studies. And it's in the middle of coronavirus. And if they didn't go to school at that moment, they're not going to complete the education. And so she was awarded because she used rugs to make sure that now her daughters may be able to go to school and complete their studies. To me, that sparked a really great interest to explore that area of menstrual hygiene. And so when I started looking at the whole prospects of menstrual products, the menstrual hygiene market, I realized something that is very common, because in Kenya we have over 10 NGOs that collect sanitary products and give them for free. But I realized that if these organizations have been existing for more than 10 years now, but still the problem of period poverty in Kenya is skyrocketing to 65% of the Kenyan girls and women don't have access to menstrual products, then something was wrong. Then I started narrowing it down in the market perspective. What about if it's the pricing? How about if it's the product itself? But I couldn't get the answer to these questions myself, because I'm not using the products and I can't even tell whether it is good or it's bad. So the next thing was for me to do a social mapping and a pilot program to go into the community to talk to people. Why do you still don't have access to sanitary products? Is it about the price, or is it about the product itself, or what is it? Is it about people giving the donations don't really actually bring the donations to your doorstep, or what is the problem? Then I realized that to many people, they prefer an opportunity to prepare for themselves and to give for themselves not only the products they don't have, but to create a longer lasting impact even in the lives of their children and in the generations to come. And so I decided that if I'm not going to be an NGO, also to collect products from other NGOs and give them for free, then I had to do something different. And I'd already had a saying that if charity is not enough, then it's business, because business can help us to solve a lot of problems. It can give employment opportunities, create impact, and even drive a financial impact too. And so I decided I want to create a new product, and it's going to be a new sanitary product. But I didn't know it's going to be made from banana fibers. Then I realized that Kenya produces more than 30 tons of banana products, and in each and every county in Kenya, you can't miss to find a whole or a very big, large plantation of bananas. Then I said, fruits are being cut and sold, but what happens to the trunk? How about we revolutionize the sanitary towels industry using banana fibers? Then I did more research on why is banana fibers, how about bamboo fiber, wood fiber, or any other fiber? Then banana fiber, they proved to be very much absorbent. They had a high absorbent rate. But I didn't stop there, because now I needed more than just a team to help me to manufacture our first prototype, or even just to make sure that the whole idea of manufacturing a biodegradable sanitary towel using banana fibers was a correct idea. I consulted here and there, and then I needed more than just a team, more than just people who are ready to roll up their sleeves, because this is a very new invention to us. I was a man who was driving the change. And in Kenya, we have a lot of taboos and a lot of exclusion in the community when you are a male and you're dealing with a menstrual hygiene product. So we're just talking about menstrual hygiene. People might regard you as you're mentally crazy or something is wrong with you. And so I needed not just somebody who is coming in because this is an idea that you can go and compete with in an actors, but I needed somebody who is able to see it as a perspective of my vision of us creating a new sustainable product to the world and to the community. And so at that moment, technology also became my enabler, because I could go in and look up, if this problem is persisting, have people tried to correct it before? And where did they fail? Did they fail in delivering the product, or did they fail in the quality of the product? So this also helped me to know that if I'm going to pursue this journey, these are some of the specs and these are some of the preferences that I have to keep in touch to make sure that my product stands out. And after a period of time, when the idea was now ready, I had a team that already believed in our mission. And we decided that let's take it to the next step. Let's just go and look for funding to make sure that we have something more than just a concept paper. We are now able to show a prototype, an MVP that somebody can say, okay, I can help you guys to move from this place to the next place. Then we got in our first funding from Kenya Climate Innovation Center, around $10,000, that enabled us to buy our first fabricated local machines in Kenya. So from that moment, I started realizing this is going to be big because it's our first shot, and somebody had already believed in our vision of creating and providing biodegradable sanitary towels that are going to revolutionize the sanitary towels industry. That was more than just a bastion of hope to me,
Right.
because
it was real tangible evidence that this idea had traction. Yes.
Yeah,
let me pause you there, Lennox. Yeah. Let me pause you there, because I think I want to just highlight a couple of things that I hear in your story that I think are so important for other social entrepreneurs of any age and stage to really hear around how do you know when something's going to work. And what I hear in your story really is this notion around piloting, iterating, testing, listening to customers, seeing and asking why. I heard you asking why over and over and over again. Why is this still a problem? Why have the other solutions? Why are they not solving this problem? Where can I find a gap in this ecosystem and then create a solution that is uniquely designed to fill that gap? And how do I understand what I also heard you say is a humility around your own limitations on this particular issue, since you do not experience period poverty yourself. How can I recognize my own limitations and work with my customers, listen to them, find other members of my team who can help me better understand these issues? And so I think those are such critical lessons for any social entrepreneur, whether they're young or old or anywhere in between, to really think about how do I get comfortable with testing, with iterating, with failing, with starting again, and how do I build a team that complements my skills and experiences and helps to also really fill those gaps there. Muhle, what would you say in terms of when you were in the early days of building Asante Solutions? What gave you confidence that this idea, these services that you would provide, would find a customer base and traction?
Sure, thanks. For Asante Solutions to be where it is today, and how we found confidence that this is the business that we want to really offer to the market, it has been really, it started way early while I was still in university. I, for one, has been fascinated by technology itself, but really not grounded on what technology or what part of technology it is. And when I was part of the Nexus organization, my responsibility more than anything, it became part of the visual communication on the projects we're doing in communities. So it was becoming part of my responsibility on how to package a certain messaging, how to make the process easier for the beneficiaries to actually understand on how they can actually implement a certain parts of the process on some of the innovations we brought in, And that's just kept on happening and happening. So now preparing presentations for competitions, preparing presentations for meetings and all that. And that becomes part of the visual communication aspects of it. And then I further had an opportunity to solidify my expertise, granted by an Nexus itself, that I need to sharpen my skills on how to visually communicate certain things, So while doing all of that, I then started seeing the gap in the market, that as much as we've been doing all this amazing work, but a lot of businesses or a lot of enterprises or a lot of people are struggling to make progress because, one, they cannot communicate what exactly they are doing and make another person be more attracted to that. But secondly, when it comes to the digital transformation side, people are very afraid into utilizing technology to actually transform themselves and unlock the next better opportunity. So that was the booming point, like, flip. Let's turn the script now. Let's drive how we are investing our energy into helping the enterprises we are working with to better communicate what they are doing, to better serve the people that they are trying to serve, to better utilize technology for their advancement in minimal resources. Because at the end of the day, it's about making impact, but how you are making impact needs to be very well thought through. And our parts as Asante Solutions has been that we are going to unlock the power of these different social enterprises, these different businesses to best serve their target audience. That is how we can maximize the scale of impact we can do. So we are impacting the ones that we are able to service so that they can best serve and impact others that are there. So that has been the driving force of this. But now the solidifying part that this is a good idea, it's been the recognition from different platforms within the university structures themselves, getting an opportunity to do some of the work. And as time went on during the COVID period, when a lot of people really didn't know how to best service their community or make that communication of impact, the very same university that I'm part of, UKZN, we became the first agency of their alumni that they got to entrust to come up with creative comms during the period of COVID-19 university-wide. Beyond that, we're like, oh, okay. So what we're doing is that scale now. Okay, this is really amazing. And then from there, it keeps on going on and on. Now it took care of one of the biggest graduations in the country, and it's just inspiring everyone to be part of university structures and so on. From there onwards, the success of the business that we've been doing, we also got another accolade that just like, oh, right, we're doing this right now. When I was selected as part of the Forbes 2022 listers, and that just says that, oh, in the whole African continent now, the work that we are doing as Asante Solutions is really transforming the social enterprises or the businesses that we get an opportunity of working with, for them to unlock growth for their businesses and for them to best save us, the audience that they have. Further than that, our business also now became part of Accenture, of which Accenture is a global enterprise, global company, strategy, technology, and everything. And then what they saw in us is a future that we can be more like them, and that is what, like, oh, right, we got this and we're doing it properly, we're doing it right. So there has been the series of assurances that
of course,
through the success of the work we do.
Well, and I think it's so important to hear those pieces of the journey, because what I also, heard in your story again is you have very clearly defined for Asante Solutions where in the value chain you are making your impact. You've been very clear, like, we exist to serve these other organizations and help them to unlock their impact. And so I think, again, all social entrepreneurs have to be clear on which problem are we solving and which stage of the problem are we solving. And your Asante Solutions is solving problems that are perhaps a bit earlier or in a different part of the value chain than perhaps a consumer product good company that is selling something direct to consumer. And so I think it's both have impact, but it's important to be very clear around which part of the impact chain are you working in. And the other part that I hear in all of your stories, again, is this, like, listening to the market, right? You're listening to the market. You're defining, like, what is the market telling me I'm moving in the right direction or the wrong direction? How do I stay attuned to that and follow where the market is really driving. Ananya, as you're thinking about the beginning of this online store, and I'm curious in terms of, what are you wanting to see in these early days to let you know you're on the right track or the wrong track?
Thanks, Robin. So I think, firstly, I think for me to personally jump into this, there were a couple of other indicators also that I was looking at. And I think one of them was also because we're social entrepreneurs, there's a huge there's a huge test of your personal resilience and passion and how long you think you can hold that out. So I actually
let's just underscore that. I think everyone needs to say yes to that.
Yeah. I think that was like I had actually put a time frame to that, and I'd said, okay, like if this is giving me sleepless nights for like 7 months in a row, it's probably like a genuine passion, and I should probably jump into it. So I think that was like one indicator I was looking at for myself. The second thing was, and this is to get into, I'm just talking about before I answer your question, getting into the business, how that kind of worked out. So that was for me. I think the other thing was, of course, the women are super talented, and I think all of us, when we work with people and you work with communities, it's a sort of wave, and you get pulled into it and you want to give it your all. So it was kind of like, I did feel like this point where my ego was disassociated from the business in itself, and it was like me working for it and doing whatever had to be done at the time. So I do feel like there was a point where I was being pushed into the wave of the enterprise, and it was a being of its own. So more than like a conscious decision to jump into it. And now I think going forward, when, I did take a step back to say, okay, like we need to get them a good price for the products that they're creating to sustain the handmade products that they're making, because they only have a limited bandwidth. So the goal, I think what I did do around September, August, when I went to the drawing board and put the business plan down, was to think about this very strategically, because I had worked on a couple of social enterprises through Enactus, where we were looking at culture first, heritage first enterprises. And I think one of the key learnings is, especially in India, because we're such a culturally rich heritage, it's a very tricky business model to run, because it's a very crowded space and a lot of people jump in and undercut pricing. So I think one thing I did try to do, and I was a bit strategic about, was the brand positioning. So if you see our website, while it started as a social enterprise, when we're competing out in the world, in our website, we don't think of ourselves as a social enterprise. We're trying to play as a traditional fashion brand. So interestingly, there aren't any, like what we did was we picked up on crochet as a trend. So the women were upskilled in crochet, which in India hasn't picked up as of now. And it was a very easy skill to upskill the girls in. And they were trained in a bunch of things. But if you see our website right now, the strategic placement is to basically get a first mover advantage in the crochet business. There are no brands that are doing that. And I think one indicator that I have been happy with is to see that fashion trends are moving there. Like you'll see H&M and Zara. It's annoying that they have their own crochet collections now, but this summer they're doing exactly what we had put a bet on. Our product designs are competitive, and we're getting really good responses from consumers. I think engagement is one thing that I'm looking at as an indicator right now. So when we put the word out there on socials and on, we're doing like pop-ups and exhibitions, I'm not prioritizing sales as much as I am engagement and customer feedback on the designs. So I think going forward, I would want to keep sales as like a long-term benchmark. I think the other thing I'd want to keep is, to see if we can do, we're also trying to do like B2B sales to ensure that the women get a continuous revenue stream. And over there, what becomes really important is to ensure their quality can meet the quality that, enterprises that don't have a social focus are meeting. So it's really tricky. It is a tricky business model, because we are, we are social enterprise first, and we have to compete with players who can undercut prices, run it as a sweatshop and ensure the quality is good. So there's that aspect of trying to ensure you're giving the best product out there at the rates that the market wants, but prioritizing what they need. So I think long answer short is that I'm going to prioritize an indicator I'm looking at is, of course, like responses from customers. So we'll keep doing product feedback, sales. And then on the B2B front, we're also going to look at responses in terms of the quality that they're being able to meet on the products that they're creating.
I love that, Ananya. And I love the, what I have seen to be true, certainly in my career, is that often social impact leaders are market leaders. They see what what people want and what assets exist in the community long before some of the larger traditional commercial enterprises do. And so I think there's also this notion of, if we can't compete on price, how do we compete on impact? And so also I think that can also be a market differentiator, right? In terms of not only perhaps there is it is a premium price, but we need to tell that premium value story to our customers as well. So because we know, particularly in Gen Z, that customers also care a lot about where they work, what they spend, and the impact of their consumer choices. And so I think there's so many lessons there, and certainly it will be exciting to follow your journey, looking at the indicators, following the indicators that you've already named for success. All of you have really already spoken to the need for resilience as a habit. You've also spoken to the need of testing, iterating, listening, and as a habit in terms of social entrepreneurs. I'm curious also, I want to dig more into that notion of like, what are the habits that you have to have as leaders who are leading your enterprises at this stage? And thinking about those social entrepreneurs who are going to learn from you, either those people younger than you who are thinking about entering this field, or thinking about those who are perhaps a little further along on the journey than you, but are feeling burnt out and tired and want to be inspired by you. What are the habits that you think are most critical for social enterprise leaders to regularly have in their personal and professional lives? What are those, and really specific, what are the things that you're finding are really important? Matthias, let's come to you. What do you think? What are the habits that are really important in your business?
Right. Yeah, thanks for letting me start, because probably before I get to my end, everyone might have said it all, because I'm sure it will definitely run through. Yeah. So
yeah.
One thing that helps is the fact that in everything I do, I try to make sure that my integrity is is really maintained, because I think integrity is one thing that is very important, especially for the work we do as social entrepreneurs, because the work we do is mostly based on recommendations. Because sometimes I do get emails stating that, hey, you were put in by this organization, we want you to speak here in this country. And last year I kept traveling from one country to another, and it's because of my integrity. Because I remember when we got our first seed funding, $25,000. I told the organization that, hey, I want you to be part of the whole process. I want you to, be really part of how the money is being spent. So even I had to tell them that, hey, we want you to forward this money directly to our partners, instead of you sending it to us for us to forward it to them, creating that form of transparency. Because I was working in a global team, not just myself here. I had colleagues in Finland and in India, and we're all working together. So I wanted to really make sure that my integrity is really, really, of high standard. And that really helped me, and, it kept me going. And another thing is being able to, delegate, because trying to delegate roles is very important, because the work we are doing is very important, and it's like it involves a lot of work. So you can't do everything on your own. You need to, have the habit of, working in teams, delegating roles. And because when you're able to, work in teams, it really helps. And one thing that Inactus helped us with is the fact that in every for my campus, for instance, in every, we had departments. So we had a technology department, we had HR, we have projects, and under each department there's a project lead. So even before you exit school, being part of Inactus, you've been able to develop the habit in working in teams, delegating roles, leading a particular project, and so on. So that has also been very critical. So just to mention too, I know my colleagues will also But yeah, these two are the habits I always
I think that it's so critical in what you've offered, and certainly I think integrity for so many of us is that very grounding force in terms of actually delivering on who we are and what we say we're going to do. And then I also heard in that transparency, engagement, delegation, not just among you're not just sharing the work with team, but you're bringing funders into that work as well. Who has more habits to share and tips that the rest of us can learn from? Who'd like to come off mute and share some additional habits? Ananya, go for it.
I have a very recent learning is that I think one thing that's, because we're on our own in a way, like when you're running your own social enterprise, you have to be very self-motivated. So it's a very basic habit, but it's helped me, is to exercise. And I think it's a super underrated habit. But when it comes to self-motivated entrepreneurs, you need to get that 1 hour of either meditation or exercise or whatever it is, but to ground you and get you into the routine, because the burnout can be real. And right now I'm struggling with a job and the enterprise. So I think one thing that's just brought me to my center is to keep have a hobby and have an exercise, even if you're doing your passion project. And of course, echoing, just delegating work is really important. That's something I'm struggling with right now because I don't have a team. But I think that collaborating is probably the best way to be an entrepreneur. And I think what I've just started picking up again is I'm trying to make sure that my inbox is empty at all times. So you have to try be responsive, because it gets really overwhelming when you're you miss calendar invites if you're so you have to be tuned in. It's a bit difficult, but you have to be tuned in at all times. Make sure your WhatsApp inbox, your email inbox is empty. Just be on top of things. And I think one way to do that is to have a calendar and a schedule and meticulously lay out your time chart. So it's a way of being, I guess, but I'm still getting there, but I think it's helpful.
I think we're all still getting there, Ananya. I would just underscore and agree with you that blocking the calendar, I do a lot of time blocking to get through, to achieve all of the things in both my personal and professional life. And many things still don't get done, but I agree with you that time blocking piece of here's when I'm going to do these things has been very critical. And my team, certainly, I lead a global team at Enactus all around the world, and they often see me in my exercise clothing. So unshowered and very sweaty and what some might deem as unprofessional. But I always say, I'm a real human trying to lead an organization and also stay healthy. And so this is what it looks like sometimes. So I applaud you for also making time for both your mental and physical health as well. Lennox or Muhle, what else would you add? What habits are you finding to be really critical, or are you working on to be a successful social enterprise leader? Lennox, go ahead.
Right. Thank you. Now, because Mathias took the first chance, he has talked about all of them.
He said all of them. He said all of them.
Yes.
Yes, we're all saying yes, all of these things.
I'll say about 3. One is being visionary. And this has really helped me to see just beyond today. By having the power of the foresight, I'm able to say that if tomorrow this is going to be the shift in the market, or this is how we're going to improve our product, then this is how we're going to do it better and better. But I'm learning every day on how I can make certain decisions based on how our vision of the company and our mission is. And so I'm learning to develop myself to being more visionary and to be on that trajectory to which I can drive my company to its success. Another one is, let me talk about integrity for a second, because it is one of the things that made us to win the $1 million funding last year at the Clinton Global Initiative, because I really learned that integrity is not just something that people will say, I have integrity, but it's really, really important when you're now collaborating and dealing with people who want to be part of the journey and they want to feel and they want to be part of the impact that you're creating. And so that is very, very, it's one of the core principles of a leader if you want to lead a social enterprise. And another one will be resilience. That is something that is on my daily, like I am resilient. If I have to lead people, I have to be resilient. They have to see it from me personally. And I'm also learning, what I'm working right now is on my soft skills, because I'm meeting a lot of people. With the presidents, I'm sometimes traveling even outside Kenya to talk or just to meet people who wants to explore ways to collaborate with us. So it is something I'm learning. I'm learning even to shake a hand while not sitting down. I'm learning a lot of stuff. Yeah, because they mean a lot. Somebody can't greet me when I'm sitting down. I have to stand up, and I have to also relate with people. When I go to a community, when I interact with different women, different girls in different schools, different status quo. So I'm learning a lot of these stuff, and they're really helping me to improve my leadership skills. And not just being an entrepreneurial mindset, it has brought to me that mindset that a leader has to create a path for people to walk through. And I'm also walking that path that I'm creating. And so it is helping me to just broaden my leadership skills and, the whole avenue of how I'm building a sustainable enterprise is just growing each and every day. Yeah.
I so agree with your statements, Lennox, and feel so much resonance with your in my own career journey as well. And what I really appreciate about what you've just said is this notion of the habit of learning, right? The habit of just constantly being open to learning from the cultural around you, the soft skills piece, the data in front of you. That culture of none of us as leaders can know everything we need to know in any particular moment. But if we have a learning orientation, we will consistently build the skills we need to be successful for the next stage of our entrepreneurial journey. And I find that to be so inspiring and so helpful along the way. The other piece I want to pull out from you that I find to be a challenging habit, but something that I'm still working on, and I'm curious if others find it too, is that ability to move from the visionary to the tactical, to the visionary to the tactical. You have to both have the vision for how are we ending period poverty around the world, and you have to figure out how to get this invoice paid for this particular supplier in this moment, because the technology on your internal system isn't working. It's this consistent telescoping that I think is a unique skill of leaders. And I think it's a particularly important habit and skill for social enterprise leaders to cultivate, particularly in the early stages of their enterprises. Muhle, any final thoughts on habits that you're working on or have found to be particularly important?
Sure, thanks. What Anna just said, cleaning up your inbox for me, it is one big takeaway. And thank you for saying that, because it rhymes again in my mind. That's one thing I'm working on. But I'll just mention top 3 for me habits that are very important. One, it would be that after you've built the social capital and everything that is definitely needed for you to be socially viable, don't be bigger than the solution you are offering. Don't be bigger than the problem. Don't just try to remain humble as much as possible, because as the capital, the social capital gets bigger, you find reasons sometimes to decline some other things and everything. It's just that finding a way to be very humble and finding a way to be very clean with your communication with other people. Even when you are not handling the communication, the comms team that is handling your communication, they need to have your personality in it. So that would be one. But number 2, we have spoken about the integrity and all those aspects. For me, it would be to be okay with being wrong. It's not an easy thing, but as the first person or the leader of an enterprise, you are the one who gets all the accolades whenever things are going right. But whenever things are going down, be okay to be wrong so that you can easily relearn the whole process. And then lastly, teamwork makes the dream work. So having that habit of building your team, like consistently investing on the people that are doing the work with you is really one habit that I have learned, that everything goes left, right, and center, but the human capital that I'm investing on is solidified in that aspect. So being more humane, knowing and understanding that even when you can do it faster, you can do it quicker, upskill the next person for them to be the ones that are actually handling that job so that we can maximize the number of impacts. I think our business is really built on those principles and they've worked for me. We are in a creative space, and creativity, sometimes you are blocked by, by everything that you're dealing with. So upskilling more people, understanding that the teamwork is going to make the dream work has been one thing. So be okay to be wrong. After you've built that social capital, don't be bigger than the problem and the solution. Build your team. That's it for me.
Amazing advice in terms of habits. As our final question, before we see what other thoughts our audience has today, I want to talk about funding, money. None of this works without money. None of this works without a strong business model. And so, we could obviously have an entire session, multiple sessions focused just on capital and capital raising and the different types of capital and what capital is right for what stage of enterprise. And there's a whole body of work that we could talk about, but I would love to hear from you all. If one tip or piece of advice that you have for your fellow social entrepreneurs when it comes to raising money for your venture. One tip or piece of advice when it comes to raising capital. Take a minute to think about your best piece of advice, and then let me know who wants to go first. Lennox, I'm going to call on you. I see you smiling. I'm going to ask you to share your wisdom. Come off mute and share your wisdom. One piece of advice when it comes to raising money.
All right. Thank you. One tip. Probably I'll have to say 2 or 3 of them because they are interconnected.
Of course.
One, somebody will not be able to believe in your idea if you personally don't believe in your idea. So first of all, first of all, you need to believe in your idea as a social entrepreneur. You have to believe in the path that you're going to take. And another thing is that you must have the vision of the company or of the enterprise. Somebody before giving you funding will say, and this is a common question, where do you see yourself and your company in the next maybe 6 months? And if you're not able to even visualize the company growing or even having challenges in the next 6 months, they will never take that risk with you. And so I think these are some of the things that before even going for funding, you really have to find the answers for yourselves and by yourself before going and looking for that funding. And the next thing is that each and every day we'll go out to look for funding, but it is not going to be a greener pasture day. And getting funding for social entrepreneurs is to me, it was difficult, I have to say, because it took some time for me to now get the funding that we wanted, but eventually with perseverance and dedication to solving our problem and giving a good solution to the market, we eventually got funding. And so just believe in the idea. That is just one, because if you don't believe in idea, the people who are going to give you funding or somebody is going to help you get that funding, if they also don't believe in your idea, then it's going to be a worthless journey for you who is going to pursue it. So believe in the idea, and then if you're looking for funding, look for funding from those organizations that their values or their missions and their visions also align to the vision and mission for your company, because we are going to share value together. You are going to give them value that is going to help them achieve one or two of their missions and their visions. And it's going to be a win-win situation. You get funding, create bigger impact, and they're also getting value from inside of the company. So define value, know how you're going to, bring value to them, and in turn get value to you also as a company or as an individual. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Muhle, what would you add? One tip for raising money for your enterprise.
It's unfortunate that I haven't raised money for our enterprise. We've bootstrapped our way up.
So maybe the advice is don't be afraid to bootstrap, right? Like don't be afraid to do it. Yeah.
Definitely, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
But we've acquired businesses. So one tip and advice that I would say is that have the mindset of an investor before you go asking for money. Have the mindset of them, because it will save you from diversifying too much when it comes to your business. It will save you from not knowing when they're gonna exit or not exit their business. It will save you from relying on grants to actually run and function when you're not getting that funding, and then you're like, I can't push on this idea. Ours has been always bootstrapping the way up, and we are now in a point and position where we have the muscle to even acquire other businesses or to invest in other businesses. We know we are going to a point where we will ask for investment to come to us, but by that time when we do that, we would have already made our own mistakes, we would have already been exposed. So learn the mindset of the investor before you ask for it to come on board.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece I would just pull out from yours is don't be afraid of different types of capital. Like there's the friends and family, there's the bootstrapping, there's grants, there's investment, there's debt, there's all different types. And you need to know which type is right for you at which stage in your leadership and which stage in your country, in your company. And every single one of those types of capital has a different investor mindset. And so you need to understand what are the motivations and barriers to those particular capital holders. So excellent advice. Mathias and Ananya, go ahead.
That's thing on that point. I think when it comes to this whole big idea of investing, especially in the social enterprise space, I believe it's very important to see how far can you go by yourself and push your best limits before relying on external resources coming, because you're solving a real problem. And the problem is so close to your heart, more than the investor's money. So go as hard as you possibly can to unlock that. So I just wanted to add that part as we are making the different investments. Thanks.
That's great. Mathias and Ananya, one tip if you have it. And then Debbie, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out and tell us a little bit more about Catalyst 2030. But Mathias and Ananya, anything you would add, a tip on raising money for your venture?
I can go first. I think, Robin, you sort of covered what I was about to say, but I think one thing, I haven't raised money for my social enterprise yet, but I've been working with a nonprofit for some time. So I've seen that side of fundraise as well. And I think as I was thinking about the strategy for Kala, which is the social enterprise, there, I had to very strategically think about the kind of funding I need for what period of time. So right now, the kind of funding, when we started out, it was just me bootstrapping it, and the enterprise needed my capital. As we put the concept and the pilot out there, sustaining the 40 women that we're working with, that's the goal. And for that, you might need like catalytic funding, but as we choose to expand and go to scale to new communities, that's when we need trainings. And that's when, we'd probably look at donor funding, so larger livelihood programs, grant funding. So I think in most social enterprises, there are very changing needs as the enterprise grows, and it's almost cyclical. So it's important to check what that need is at the time that you're going for funding. I think a more tactical point of advice that I would give is, I think usually when we've raised capital for the nonprofit that I work for, we do very often, donors usually care about the indicators that you're giving them. So because you're not giving them traditional returns on financial investment, you need to be very clear about the impact indicators that you're giving them. So just think through those very carefully, very meticulously, and think about how you can actually achieve those. There should be achievable outcome indicators that actually matter to your organization. I think those are the 2 points. And I think lastly, I think it's really important to align with the investors because, like all of us, most people who bootstrapped it are investors in this concept ourselves. And
That's right.
we've invested in the mission. So you want someone who invests in the mission. You don't want someone who will maximize the profit value out of it because that will dilute the entire essence of the enterprise. So I think that's more crucial in social enterprises than in traditional enterprises. And it's a very tricky thing because if you get a wrong cultural fit and you're like indebted to them, it could be very tricky. So I think that's
exactly right. Exactly right. Could not agree more, Ananya. Could not agree more. Mathias, you have the last word. One additional tip on funding, if you have it, or something that you would emphasize from what your colleagues have offered.
Yeah, so I think at this point, I now get into the shoes of Muhle, who usually answers the question last. Yeah, I know how it feels now. So yes, of course, just to share a quick one. So one important thing is that you need to really know your story, and know how to tell your story. It is very, very important, especially in the perspective of being a social entrepreneur, because you are solving a problem directly, and at the core or the center of your business or your operations, you're looking at sustainability, you're looking at impact, although you're making money. But then most of the investors are centered on money, money, money. So if you aren't able to, tell your story very well, if you aren't able to, talk about the value, it becomes difficult for you to fundraise. So you need to really convince the investor about the need to, invest in social entrepreneurship and how social entrepreneurship will drive change. And then one other thing I also want to quickly talk about is the fact that you need to talk about the value of the initiative or the solution you are bringing on board or you are running, because the value also will help you get access to the funding you need, because there are several social innovations, several projects looking for funding, and the funding gap is still very huge. So if you aren't able to really identify the value you are bringing, and then also talk about even the initial impact you've been able to make with your social venture, it becomes difficult. Most often people tend to sit back and then say that, oh, I haven't raised anything, so let me just sit back until I fundraise. They keep moving from pitch competitions to pitch competitions, without even starting off needs assessment.
That's right.
Not knowing that needs assessment, working with community, this gives you enough information to even pitch. But then you end up sitting in your houses saying that, okay, I need funding before I start off grounds. I need funding. No, just try and then start off, write your proposals, work with your community, start looking at initial solutions, start looking at, I think Muhle mentioned one other thing that was very important, that you need to really make sure that you can do it yourself first. Go that far, see how far you can go with yourself before you look for additional funds. And so, yes, these are the key points I just wanted to, add up to what my colleagues have said.
Such brilliant wisdom that we have all heard from these four incredible entrepreneurs. I am so grateful for your time, for your energy, for your enthusiasm, for the incredible hard work that all four of you are leading in your enterprises and around the world. Thank you for being with us today. At Enactus, these are the types of young people that we get the chance to work with every single day. And I think everyone on the call can agree that the world needs more of these impact-driven, highly skilled, globally informed leaders. And so at Enactus, we are on a mission to grow both our reach and impact. In 2022, we educated 43,000 young people across 33 countries. Our goal is that by 2025, we want to be educating 100,000 young people, just like the four people you have seen here, every single year, and be on track to educate 1 million young people by 2030 in this critical post-COVID deadline, or post-COVID decade. And so I encourage those of you who are new to learning about Enactus to learn more about our work, because the world certainly needs more of the leadership that we have seen today. So thank you so much. And before we close out this session, I want to turn it back over to Debbie with Catalyst 2030.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Absolutely wonderful session. I think we can all agree. A couple of things and updates that we want to share with all of you. Not only with Catalyst 2030, there's lots of opportunities for you to join Catalyst and get involved. So we will share the information in the link about Catalyst 2030, global movement of social entrepreneurs around the world. Excuse me, it was launched at the World Economic Forum in 2020, and it has grown exponentially since then. 4 different things to get involved with. If your country or government is doing great things, we'd love you to nominate them for an award. Those of you that have products, go to Catalyst Markets or Good Market. We are partnering with Good Markets for Catalyst Markets. So Anaya, you and Lennox, definitely look into this opportunity to sell your products online and market and promote them. They do a great job. If you're a business, including all of your businesses, we're looking at business commitments that businesses are committed to social change. And the last resource is Social Change Innovators, an online portal, knowledge resource portal for social entrepreneurs that's been curated by social entrepreneurs for social entrepreneurs. So we'd love you to share in that as well. As we're saying goodbye to everyone, please join in all the other upcoming sessions that are happening. There are so many. I've already thought of different ones for each of you. Would love to have you join us. We do have a president's panel later this evening, and we have some headline sessions as well. So we'd love to have you. But thank you once again to the Enactus team. What we always do at Catalyst is we saying goodbye. It's just unmute yourself and say goodbye to everyone and thank them for the wonderful panel discussion. Thank you all.